current medicine is reactive. You get sick, you get cured. The next generation of medicine is proactive, preventative. What will be the future is actually something which is continuous monitoring. And before things even needs fixing, we actually track to see how do you function. Let's be honest about it. Where are the discoveries in healthcare from India for Indians? We don't have name or biological parameter discovered in India deployed in. We have not done it. A lot of studies have been done where people have actually looked at ways to improve the lifespan. Not life expectancy. Life expectancy is your ability to stay alive within the environment condition. Lifespan is what is the maximum life you're supposed to live. People have tried to extend their lifespan. And guess what works? Just caloric restriction. You reduce amount of sugar consumed or calories you consume. The less you need to consume oxygen to burn it, and you actually live longer. And next 10 years should be something which should get our hospitals active. I would like to see our hospitals as a place where people only go when they really need help or actually sick yet. People should not go to hospital for healthcare. We're still talking about Tesla coming to India when it's been US for almost 10 years, right? Autonomous vehicles are on the road, and here we don't even have. So it takes a little time to transition, bring technologies to this country. So let's talk about the Make in India should be cheaper, more, meeting the local needs. But if the whole motivation is cheaper, then it's a slightly different motivation. The whole design is we should make it in India because it's going to give jobs to people, it's going to generate more revenue, and it's going to be low on cost. But actually, it's pretty low on innovation. So the Make in India should start with, think in India, create in India, innovate in India. I will actually go there. Are we innovating in India? Answer is no.
Thank you for joining Once Changing the World, India's first Future Tech Meet Sustainability podcast. I'm your host, Eddie Avil, and today I'm delighted and honored to have with me Mr. Deepak Kumar Si, who's a molecular biologist and professor at the Department of Development Biology and Genetics, Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, and the lead investigator, ICMR, Center for Advanced Research on Aging. He's a convener for Longevity India Initiative at IISC, India's flagship program to extend Healthspan through translational research, big data, and clinical studies. He is also the principal investigator at Saini's lab, and his research interest includes signaling in aging, inflammation, infection, and two-component signaling systems in Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Thank you. Really, really appreciate you taking time and being part of the podcast. Now, your foundational work is in bacterial pathogenesis, which is like a world of attackers and defenders. And now you've kind of, transitioned to aging. What was the specific scientific question or that moment that served as that intellectual bridge for you to transition from infection to the field of aging?
So my interest was always been communication. You might find it interesting, like communication means what? Communication is very simple idea is that it's information exchange between a transmitter and a receiver. Somebody is giving information, somebody is receiving it, and has got to do something about it, made to generate a response. So bacteria, as a fundamental, simple life forms, also have to adapt rapidly to changing environment around them. So my interest was how TB senses, it's in air versus it's in host. The idea was to understand how this bacteria communicates with the outside world and take decisions. So while I was studying decision-making process, I realized there are very similar approaches which human cells in our body also take to adapt to changing environment. And again, part of communication. I slowly started dwelling into how human body adapts to changes in environment around them and how over time this decision making process changes. How does some simple adaptive processes evolve differently when we get old? And I think that's where we started looking at various aspects of aging, because aging is a natural state of human body, or actually all living things body. What was interesting about aging, which I found fascinating, was while you may or may not get a disease, there's a chance event associated with it. For aging, there's no chance event, it's inevitable. The whole idea was that its inevitability of aging made it very, very fascinating. And that's what we started looking at.
Professor, I mean, rightfully pointed out, aging seems to be inevitable, though there is, some of the top scientists, researchers in the world trying to figure out whether we can stop, slow, or reverse aging. My question to you is that currently, aging, still remains a complex puzzle because there's so many biomarkers, of why we age. Could you explain, or maybe do you have like an understanding from a biological perspective, why do we age, and what are the most promising biomarkers that can help us track aging?
So the two questions, one, why do we age? Second, what is a promising biomarker? I'll come to them one after another. Let's think about our body as, so I actually joke with people about this, we all have a Ferrari, which is our body. It's up to you. What do you do with that Ferrari? You run that Ferrari, or you put it in the garage and keep polishing it, make it look shiny, or you don't care about it. The point is, everybody is born with a Ferrari. But over time, this Ferrari, because we use it to go from point A to point B, which is our life, it actually starts behaving like a Maruti or an ambassador. It depends on what you do with that vehicle. But you think about it, if you are going using your body from doing day to day activities, which is going from point A to point B, what you will notice is that just like a vehicle undergoes wear and tear when you use it, the body undergoes wear and tear. And the best example of is to run the vehicle, you need to put fuel. To burn the fuel, you need to put oxygen. That's a necessary requirement. That's why you have a mixer in the car. That's exactly how our body works. You put in feed to run the vehicle, all the food, sugars, proteins goes in, and you breathe in oxygen to burn that fuel. Now, what makes oxygen beautiful is right from vehicle to spaceships to our bodies, everybody needs this oxygen to burn the fuel. This simple biochemical reaction makes this oxygen as the key component of burning. But oxygen is a fantastic molecule. It just reacts with everything. It loves to react. Likes to form bond. In a vehicle, we call it rust. In human body, we call it oxidative stress. More you burn the fuel, you run the machine, it ends up getting corroded because that's what machines do whenever you have left fuel. It starts generating bad exhaust. In our body, that's free radicals. So you use your body, you breathe oxygen, and you get old. So that's a fundamental rule. The easiest way to not get old is dying young, but that's no fun, right? You can also do one thing. You can put your Ferrari in the garage, don't run it at all. Basically, a human body cannot operate like that. You cannot park your body in a garage and do nothing about it. So you have to live in a bubble and don't use and do anything. So human body fundamentally get old because of that simple reason. Now that point brings automatically to the second question, what is a marker? Marker is oxidative stress. So can I detect oxidative stress in your body as you get old? Now, oxidative stress is very funny. As I said, oxygen loves to react. And because it loves to react, question is, what is it reacting in your body with? And where does it park itself as a damage? So when iron is used, it undergoes rust, and you can see rust is deposited as very nice brown particle on a metal surface. And our body, it comes in various forms and flavor. One form is inflammation, other form is loss of function. One other form would be poor cellular functionality. A variety of markers which can be used to determine aging. The fundamental challenge is not that the marker is not known. The fundamental challenge is whether you are born with a Ferrari or a Maruti. That means I do not know your baseline level of markers. And since I don't know, I cannot predict how it is changing. And that's a fundamental black hole in our understanding of aging. That when we go and look at these markers when we are sick, we don't look at these markers when we're healthy. It's like when the car is running fine, who takes it to the garage? You wait for it to break down and then you take it to the garage. And when you take it to the garage, the mechanic says, so tell me what happened. And you have no answer. Because you don't know what happened. It was running fine till yesterday. And that's the same thing which we do with our body. We do not know what causes aging because when it hits you, you have no recollection of what was the driver behind it. It could be bad habits, could be abusing, could be a poor sleep cycle, carbohydrate rich diet, low exercise, low protein. It could be any number of reasons. The idea is you did not take care of your body.
Right, right. So, Professor, I appreciate that. And, thank you for explaining it so beautifully with the analogy that, body is a Ferrari. Over the years, I think, the way we take care of it or abuse it, is the reason of that oxidative stress that you spoke about, those damages, so there is DNA damage, there is various biomarkers such as telomere shortening, protein misfolding, cellular senescence, and so on and so forth. You spoke about this oxidative stress, do you think that eventually we would be able to fix one of these markers? Possibly, what would be the reaction of that if we are able to? Would it have like a cascading effect on the entire body, and possibly maybe we'll find some ways to kind of go towards this age reversal that we're talking about?
Your question is, can I fix one marker? Let's say again, come back to analogy of the Ferrari. You change one tire, will it make your car new? You change two cars, no. Three, four, five, change the body, paint the car, which is what we do. Underlying problem is you're alive, you're running. The one way people say, let's change the engine. We have not reached that type of maturity in human understanding that we change our engine, which is the inner working of the body. So what you can do is very simple. So a lot of high-end car manufacturers recommend frequent servicing because there's a manual in your dashboard, right? You take it out, 10,000 miles done, go get oil change, get a filter change and all that. We don't have a manual for human body. We don't really have a manual for human body. I wish we had. But we have a manual which is called the sickness assessment manual. So we call it the healthcare package in various places with different name or nomenclature. You go tell them that I'm fit, but I just want to get a routine health checkup done. That routine health checkup is actually just to make sure that you're not sick, not a healthcare checkup. There's nothing they're doing about your health. They actually don't even touch you. Just draw blood, take your sample, take your urine sample, take your stool sample, do a bunch of tests. Oh, everything is great. You're good. Go back to whatever crap you were eating. So if you go by that standard, if I don't even know what's wrong with my body, what am I fixing? And by the time I see these markers, which a blood report tells me it's too late. My liver is already malfunctioning by 50 to 70% functions are gone. Same about heart. So unless we understand what are the markers which change in my body, and especially which organ is running at a faster rate. In a car, you can actually say, oh, the oil filter is bad. You replace it and the car starts to run. Or the brake fluid is bad. Because we have clear indicators what we need to change. We don't have that in human body. So we say the graying of hair is a good sign. Well, I don't think so. Graying of hair is not a sign of aging. It's a sign of pollution. And so pollution is exposome, and exposome affects me. While it tells me that I've been exposed to toxins, it could be my genetics. So there's a very complex interplay between me, which is what I do, my genes, which I've inherited, and my environment, which is constantly bombarding with all kind of stuff. So the bottom line is, even if we understand very well some of these markers, we still do not know how to fix them completely. The way to fix them is slow fixing over time, try to repair or let undo the damage. But for that, I need to understand what are the markers they're trying to tell me, which we do not have a clear understanding yet.
Right. Yeah. So, Professor, I really hope that eventually we would get to a point where we maybe possibly understand the entire human body. And of course, there are various, like, I mean, there was a DNA which was kind of mapped 3.4 billion base pairs of DNA. And till a certain point of time, you only thought that, no, it's only your genes which matters. Then we realized, no, it's not just the genes, it's also the epigenetics, the environment which kind of affects us. As a professor, a researcher, scientist who is in the field of longevity, how convinced are you from your side that we would eventually find a way to possibly maybe slow down, stop, or reverse aging? And what is it that thing which kind of convinces you, because you have dedicated your life for aging, right? So I'm sure there must be something that convinces you about this aging. So would love to hear your thoughts on that.
So you use three words: reverse, stop, and slow down. I think the closest possibility is slow down. We probably are not going to be in a state to reverse aging that soon. Stop, improbable. And the only closest possibility is slow down the process of aging. As I said, when you breathe in oxygen, oxygen is going to generate damage. The only way is how do we maximize this consumption of oxygen and its energy generation. Over the years, I think the last 3, 4 decades, a lot of studies have been done where people have actually looked at ways to improve the lifespan. Not life expectancy. Life expectancy is your ability to stay alive within the environment condition. Lifespan is what is the maximum life you're supposed to live. And well, of course, we cannot do this in human. Human have a right now a bottleneck at 120 or so. But in many animals, organisms like flies or worms or mouse, people have tried to extend their lifespan. And guess what works? Just caloric restriction. You reduce amount of sugar consume or calories you consume, the less you need to consume oxygen to burn it, and you actually live longer. And it has been shown that you know, impaired sensing of the nutrition, which actually slows down the metabolism, has the same impact. And a human being also, the only thing which, not the only thing, one of the major thing which is shown to have improved quality of life is calorie restriction. Is eat less, eat till you're 80% full and something of that sort. Increase your protein intake, and that's where we see maximum impact on our lifespan. So, right. So the short of the long answer is reversal, no. Stopping, no. Slow down, definitely a big yes.
Right. So I mean, thank you for pointing out towards that. That there are approaches, such as dietary restrictions, intermittent fasting, and so on and so forth, which has actually shown help at this point in time. David Sinclair's lab has kind of shown signs of maybe reverse aging in mice, and obviously, from mice to translating into humans, obviously, that's like a long, long journey. There is Brian Johnson. I'm sure Brian Johnson, everybody knows about him. He's kind of pushing the limit and has run through various experiments and shown that there is some maybe slowing down of aging is possible. And I'm sure, so I've been doing this for the long time as somebody who's been invested in future technologies. I believe that I mean, the way we are accelerating and all these technology stack which is converging, eventually I guess maybe maybe we might have answers to possibly maybe push that boundary of maybe can we maybe reverse age, because there are biological species which has shown signs of maybe where you can reverse age. There is the storage process, don't unable to pronounce that, which never dies. And there's bowhead whales, then there's that whales and mole rats. So I'm sure eventually we would be able to possibly maybe reverse engineer these animals and possibly find out that if it happens in another species, why isn't it that we are able to replicate it in human beings? So hopefully, maybe not now, maybe in the maybe the next few decades. I'm assuming that there should be an answer for something like this. Cellular senescence, is it's a field which is often kind of pushed as maybe that like a big hope for aging, but it's also like a double-edged sword because it's protective against cancer early on, but it drives aging later on. Do you think that we can, maybe therapeutically modulate this switch, and would it help?
Well, that's the hope everybody is banking. That's the hope which has led to a $3 trillion industry in offing, right from nutraceuticals, small molecule drugs, metabolic remodeling, gene therapies, stem cell population, red light therapy, and so on and so forth. People have been all trying to see what can I do to mitigate this oxidative stress imbalance and also to improve the cell stemness or basically regenerative potential. So a lot of things are happening. Remove cellular senescence, suppress cellular senescence, suppress inflammation. Rapamycin is a big champion of keeping your immune system in check. Platform into slowing down your metabolic remodeling and a whole lot of antioxidant, right, from NALC and you know, uh, all kind of phytochemicals. The list is endless. Evidence is very sparse. And see, you've taken the name of some of the prominent people who are championing this longevity narrative. I think everybody is in a very initial stage. We are on very early stages. Everybody is looking for indications, looking for markers, looking for features which will tell me, am I going forward or am I going backward in respect to time and my age? That's the point. And if you look very carefully in the natural kingdom, what you'll notice is there are a lot of anomalies around nature which we struggle to explain very easily. And these anomalies are very simple. Tortoise, turtles, elephants tend to live very long. Greenland shark, enormously long. And you look at naked mole rat, which you mentioned, again, lifespan 4 times a regular mouse, 7 to 28 times. It's actually quite long. And the evidence come again and again in many forms. And if you look, the one of the things which you realize, most of the organisms have very slow metabolic rate, right? One thing which stands out, low metabolic rates. Tortoise, turtles, Greenland shark, deep, buried, oxygen low, nutrition low, exposure to sunlight low, except for turtle or a shell on the body. But yeah, it's kind of on the lower side. So if you go by that logic, anything which is having a high metabolism will invariably have a negative correlation with long life. And because of a brain which requires constant oxygen and carbon supply, sugar supply, we will have huge oxygen demand on our body, huge metabolic burden in our body. So, and if you look at these creatures, also you realize they're not the most active life forms. They're not, doing a cardio or running a marathon. They are the slowest life creatures. That seems to have a positive correlation. So it's a lot of antithesis exists in the nature. How do you want to champion it? It's a very interesting challenge. As a human being, we are driven by use of our brain, which is the biggest furnace in our body in terms of utilizing energy. And then we have muscles. We need muscle to maintain mobility. We are a very mobile life form. We are not very slow living life form. We are very active life forms. So energy demand to muscle is also high, and we have to do exercise to keep them supple so that we have mobility. One of the biggest features which translates into poor quality of life in human beings is loss of mobility. It's not about having muscles. It's not about having great brain. Moment you lose mobility, you are actually marked to become old. That's how it goes. So if you go by all the designs, we are still struggling to understand what would actually allow us to live long. What will allow us to understand what could be the therapeutic nodes of intervention. We have not understood it very well. So yes, we will wait to understand.
Right. Yeah, Professor, I really hope that we, maybe someday are able to understand that, because you spoke about loss of mobility, like just last week, I mean, my mom, she's 80 plus, she fell down and she hurt herself. And I think, like my mom, like there are millions, billions possibly who are like, that age, and at that age brings these accidents, and losing mobility is like a real problem. I hope that we kind of maybe come to a point, maybe we are able to extend the health span where we make these aged population maybe more healthier. And I guess that's the reason you spoke about, you mentioned that business opportunity there, that's the reason I think, the Jeff Bezos and some of the biggest investors are kind of pumping in funds over there, because I'm sure they believe that eventually maybe we could crack this, maybe not sooner, maybe later, because you also spoke about, those various interventions, stem cell therapy, gene therapy, blood transfusion, the cellular senescence. There's so many different approaches, hyperbaric oxygen chamber, and also these drugs that you spoke about, they're kind of trying to use metformin, rapamycin. I'm sure, because these are like small interventions, but eventually I'm sure we should be able to kind of find ways and understand this complexity of life and biology, and possibly maybe find a way to kind of, maybe, slow, stop, and reverse aging. If you had unlimited funding and resources, what's that approach that you would go towards, to kind of fix reverse aging?
I hope it gives me unlimited funds to begin with. See, one of the fundamental challenges, you heard about Brian Johnson, we talked about him, right? So let's not go into the names, but there are people who popping 100 pills a day. You ask me the rationale, why should one pop 100 pills a day? The reason is very simple, because I don't understand which pill to pop. I'm just hoping one of these 111 will work for me, right? This does this does this is for my left elbow, this is for my right elbow, this is for my left ear, it's for my right ear. I mean, this permutation is endless. The challenge is I still do not know what feature in my body needs fixing, right? So what we need to do, this is something which we're trying to do in our study in IISc. We call it the BHARAT study. And the BHARAT is an acronym which basically stands for biomarkers for healthy aging, resilience, adversity, and transition. If you think very carefully, this is about markers of things which change in your body over time. Correct. So biomarkers of healthy aging, if I'm healthy and I'm getting old, what changes in my body? Resilience, if something happens to me, what markers tell me how rapidly I will recover? Markers of adversity means if what are the markers which are telling me that I am, if something adverse happens to me, I will not be able to recover, or indicating that I'm facing an adverse reaction, adverse event in my body. And transition is when various stages of my body, like going through puberty or menopause or other stages of my life, what changes in my body occur? The answer is we do not have that information. I still cannot tell you when you walk into a hospital or when you even if you have after a fall, how long it will take to recover. And you know that, you said your mother recently had. The doctor gives a vague answer which can be ranging from 3 weeks to 3 months. Because I don't have a marker, I don't have a predictor which will tell me what is your rate. And this type of lack of understanding of our human body or human physiology is what is a burden of resources in our system. Can I reallocate my resources for people who really need it? I don't know. I really don't know who are the people who need it. Why are our hospitals crowded? Because there's no way to tell this without doing a whole battery of tests about what kind of care the person needs. Or is a person serious or not serious? Does a person need an intervention or not? I don't have an idea. So what we basically need is to first build that, which I mentioned in the car, a manual for human aging, where I can account for changes which occur in human body based on this billions or millions of things which change. Why we have struggled to make sense from genome to your life? Because there's so many steps between genome to you. There has to make an RNA, RNA has to make protein, protein has to do something, make those metabolites, metabolites have to stay or excreted, they have to do some function. There's so many variables, and every time That variable comes in that many times, it multiplies the complexity. So we are looking at trillions and trillions of complex, orders of reactions which differs you from me. If that is the complexity, we are not going to make a lot of sense of this. So if I had unlimited resources, I will start building that atlas. I'll start building a data repository which allows me to understand you at various stages of your life. Or because the time is of essence, I would try to understand what is an average individual features when they're healthy at various time on their age looks like, and then try to look at the feature with respect to their gender, their age, what do they eat, what geographical location they live, what is the environmental exposure burden, socioeconomic background, because those features will change. And now with the new AI tools, we can sieve through the data in a meaningful way. Now, once I have that data, and on this data I mount my sickness data, I would be able to identify what markers emerge when the sickness is at very early stages. I'll give you one example. In India, we all say all Indians have high cholesterol. We all love to, take pop pills to control our cholesterol or modify our diet to manage cholesterol. What if I say that cholesterol increase in your body over age is a natural function? If it's a natural function and my cholesterol threshold keep increasing, I don't have to do anything about it, then that will be a great situation because you do not have to have overprescription problem. But we don't have that data. I don't even know how does the cholesterol parameter change with age, right? Because we all be dealing with the Western data side. And even there, this information is missing. If I can do that and I can generate that information for every organ in your body, then when you walk into a clinic, if we deploy a certain finite number of tests, not for your sickness, but for your health, I say, let's look at these 20 markers. Based on this 20 marker, I will be able to tell you which organ in your body is older than your actual age. Then I can shift the behavior of that organ from a pathological state to a non-pathological state by changing the utility of that organ. If it's lung, I can prescribe, you can actually say your lung is clocking faster. You may need to manage your lung. You change the way you breathe, how you breathe and where you breathe. If it's gut, you manage the gut. If it's liver, you manage the liver. If it's muscle, you manage the muscle. So you need to find that weak link in your body. And that's where I'll bet my money.
Right, right. Interesting. And kudos to the effort that you're putting with Bharat study. And I'm sure, with AI coming in, the bioinformatics data, I'm sure it's going to play a huge role in maybe, taking the step towards, what you spoke about, the manual for human aging. Now, the Indian government, is strongly pushing the make in India in biotech. What is the biggest bottleneck from your side, from translating these research which is from the lab to the market? What's the bottleneck over there? Is it the funding? Is it regulatory hurdles? It's the hurdle between the academia and the industry. Would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Let's be honest about it. Where are the discoveries in healthcare from India for Indians? We don't have them. Name one drug which was actually discovered in India, deployed in clinic. Name a biological parameter discovered in India, deployed in clinic. We have not done it. We largely duplicate resources which is developed in West and deployed in India. So Indian pharma industry or Indian healthcare industry does not take input from Indian research. There is a disconnect there. There's a very big disconnect because for obvious reasons, Indian research has not even contributed to do those discovery because one, the resource allocation is typically lower than the Western standards. Two, by the time the technology comes to a country like India, the West has actually moved ahead on that technology. We generally adopt new technologies little slower. And the reason is one, the technologies are made accessible to us at a later date. Two, the technologies are slightly more expensive for an average Indian funding body. That cost, for example, we want to buy a mass spectrometer and we've been supported by ICMR and we also got a support from Chris Gopalakrishnan to buy it because it's an expensive equipment. You got to spend tens of crores on one piece of equipment. You got to spend a lot of time thinking, is it the right investment? How much time will it become obsolete? Will we be able to even operate? A lot of people actually even question the whole aspect that are we capable of operating this equipment? Because the technologies don't come to us in the good time. You think about this. We're still talking about Tesla coming to India when it's been US for almost 10 years now, right? So autonomous vehicles are on the road and here we don't even have. So it takes a little time to transition, bring technologies to this country. And Unless we have the right technologies to ask frontline questions, the translation is still a pipe dream. We need to break that barrier. We always talk about the make in India should be cheaper, more, meeting the local needs. But if the whole motivation is cheaper, then it's a slightly different motivation. The whole design is we should make it in India because it's going to give jobs to people. It's going to give generate more revenue, and it's going to be low on cost. But actually, it's pretty low on innovation. So the make in India should start with think in India, create in India, innovate in India. I will actually go there. Are we innovating in India? Answer is no. We're not completely innovating. We need to talk about grassroots innovation, which requires a very interesting, what I call it, the appetite for risk. We do not have appetite of risk for big ticket investment. We need to invest there.
Right, Professor. I think thanks for speaking it and making it as clear as possible, because yes, I guess India, we've got the best and the brightest minds, but somehow there's a brain drain which is happening. Most of these, the bright minds, they kind of move to the Western countries, and you can't blame them, because there the ecosystem is better, they are more welcomed with an open and obviously there's no blockers for funding. And you rightfully pointed out over here, and there's bright minds over here. You spoke about autonomous vehicle. I still remember I had a conversation almost like 4 or 5 years back, with this brilliant young researcher called Sanjeev Sharma from Swayat Robotics, and his dream was to build level 5 autonomous vehicles, and he's actually built great autonomous vehicles which does these like very rugged terrains, and two-way traffics. And there are people in the healthcare space also, I mean, such as yourself, pushing the boundaries of constant innovation. But yes, I hope that the ecosystem comes together, and I hope that the government and the investors take that risk, because without risk there won't be any success. Now you have been, you're the convener for the Longevity India. Where did the idea, the inspiration come from? Because nobody was looking at longevity here in India. And what do you see of its greatest impact in the next 10 years?
The idea was very, very simple. I spent almost last 10, 15 years working on various things with aging, cellular senescence, a lot of it was senescence. Over the last 10, 15 years, I realized I was collaborating with a lot of people because they had very interesting tool sets. There's a colleague of mine who's an immunologist. There's a colleague is a cancer specialist. Somebody looks at gut. Somebody look at genetics. And it struck very interestingly that our education system has made everybody is a specialist. We are all super specialists. But a problem like aging is it's like a holistic problem. So to solve a problem, you need to have dialogues from everybody who's part of this whole puzzle called human body. So we decided that if this is the case, like, why don't we have an initiative where we have people with expertise in various subdomains of human body, and we put our strengths together. So when you look at an individual, each one of us look at individual from our organ of favorite organ, but ultimately we put the puzzle together and we talk about human body. So that is where the initiative actually took shape. And of course, initiative like these cannot take shape without the right kind of people backing it. So Prashant Prakash was interested in aging and longevity, was the first person who seeded the whole idea. I said, what you're trying to do is interesting. Let's see where we can. So, and that's where we put the seeds of the Bharat study, because we are hoping that if we have this kind of backing, we should be able to make sense of this venture, which we call the Bharat study. So this is where it started. And yes, it looking back, it looks kind of crazy and a pipe dream, but here we are, and we are quite excited about taking things forward.
Awesome. So I've been vested in XR, and around 2016, I mean, I kind of first discovered XR, and at that point of time, I think there was just about maybe around 7 startups in the country who was, talking about building AR/VR solutions. At that point of time, we had built our own 16 camera rig indigenously. This is like a virtual reality camera, and we had also built a robotic dolly, and I directed, produced India's first telescopic VR horror short film called Crackle with that. And then I realized that the ecosystem was not sustainable, and I did pretty much exactly like what you did. And I've put together like India's first virtual reality film festival and conference in Bombay. This was in 2019, and we had the who's who of XR, coming. The Meta was here, Google, Yo, Accenture, and you rightfully pointed out, I think, to make a ecosystem sustainable, you have to gather the stakeholders. I mean, that's when that it becomes, eventually it becomes sustainable. You spoke about some of the peers who are in the aging industry. Will be great if you could maybe expand on that. And who are the other startups who are specifically looking or vested in the aging industry? Because 3 trillion industry eventually it's gonna kick off, so, and do you see any of these startups, I mean, maybe making like a big dent globally in the field of aging?
Right now, I think all the startups in a very early nascent stage. In India, we have a bunch of companies which are trying to make right from healthcare assessment packages. We have BioP, Deep Holistics, Project Serotonin, Decode Age. Name a few. I mean, these are few of them. Then there is Amura Health, but they're all talking about maintaining your health, managing your health, and I think that's a fair enough point to begin this narrative. Because given that we don't even understand the rules of aging industry, you got to begin somewhere, and you begin at the point. And the point is, you begin where you know there is some sort of problem. There is a pathology which needs to be addressed. So you start with that. You start with your sickness, and you start addressing.
Right. Professor, you spoke about repurposing drugs, in the course of the conversation. You spoke about metformin, you spoke about rapamycin. Then there are these other NAD plus boosters as well as senolytic drugs such as dasatinib. Then there's quercetin. Do you think any of India's Ayurvedic or traditional medicine, if screened scientifically, might be interesting for longevity or senolytic effects?
I would say, why not? I think let's put it a black and white. We were far ahead of the curve in many aspects. The concept of intermittent fasting is there in our culture since time immemorial, right? The concept of inoculating the gut biome when the season changes, which we call as fasting, and taking the fermented food, which is charnamratam and prasadam and all that, it's been there for a very long time. We also talk about Vanaprasthashram, which basically means when you get older, you shift your life from active to a more learning and giving advice roles. There are a lot of very interesting things in Indian system, which was basically science and religion was very tightly entangled in many different ways. And given that the whole aspect of rasayanas, vratas, which is at the root of a lot of this Ayurvedic formulation, is definitely going to make a big dent in this big industry. The whole concept of that you are prakrit, that means you is different, and every individual is different prakriti. Because prakriti is my consolidated behavior of my body, and there is a malfunction. We call it dosha, and dosha needs to be fixed based on my prakriti, which is what Ayurveda champions. They were far ahead, and this is what we're trying to bring molecular evidence to now. So I guess yes, the answer is definitely there would be a big development in terms of understand bringing principles of Ayurveda or natural healing or slow, sustained physiological remodeling in this longevity industry. It is something which is bound to happen.
Right. Interesting. Professor, what do you think is one of the most overhyped, longevity research right now? And conversely, what is the most underappreciated, but could be very potential, but is not getting the attention at this point in time?
The most overhyped is assuming that a whole bunch of supplements are going to make you younger. We don't even know which of them work. I mean, in a blind study which we did in our group, half of them don't even have any effect. Some of them are actually bad, right? So this whole industry of supplement going to make you younger is something which is a gray zone and in a very big way, and that really needs to be reanalyzed. What is underappreciated? The question is, what is underappreciated? Underappreciated is our whole aspect that a pill is going to make me fit. We believe that if I pop a pill and I'm going to be fitter, it's not going to be like that. What is underappreciated is the value of mobility, exercise, suppleness, fitness, or let's call it good metabolism. The value of natural food eating. And people are suddenly saying, I want to eat Mediterranean diet and I'm going to be fit. I'm not living in Mediterranean region. I live in India. I live in a region called the tropical region where I live with pathogen, all bacteria, fungi, virus. Everybody lives with me. So my diet is going to be should cater to that. So I would say go local, eat local. What grows there is optimized for the people living in that area. This my personal belief. I don't know that this. I will be happy to be proven wrong. But this global cuisine is something which we need to really visit with kids gloves. I would say something local cuisine is going to be most optimal for your body, your genetics. But you can't avoid it because previously People not used to travel this much. And here am I, I'm today, I'm here, tomorrow I'm in Delhi, day after tomorrow I'm in Afghanistan, or so on and so forth. So that means this go local is not going to really help me. So that's a very interesting challenge. My biome, my body evolved to maximize the energy extraction utilization based on what I grew up with. And I'm retraining my gut, my body again and again by giving a different kind of food. I think that's a challenge. That's an underappreciated area which really needs more focus on. They say heal thy gut and heal thyself. How does one heal thy gut? They got to understand the gut. That's a big hole in our understanding.
Thank you for the insights. Professor, any advice that you would like to give to young students, specifically in the biotech industry? And you're the professor for IISc. How are you seeing AI and these new technologies impacting education? What's the role of AI in you see playing in the field of aging? And is your lab leveraging AI?
So let's put it this: AI is a screwdriver. A screwdriver job is to tighten the screws. But if you don't have a screw which can be tightened with the right screwdriver, it's a useless toy. And you cannot just go around like a wrench monkey tightening every screw you can find on your way. So AI is a tool. It's largely a tool. We must figure out how to use it optimally. The question matters. So the tool of AI is so powerful that it should be able to give you not only the right screw to tighten, but it should be able to tell you which screw needs to be tightened. So what I would say the AI is as good as the question you ask that AI, right? It's artificial intelligence. Remember, human stupidity will always win because AI cannot address that. We human beings have miraculously unique ways to being stupid. And that stupidity will was what makes us unique. We end up doing something so bizarre every day we wake up that it just keeps everybody on the toes. So AI can remove some of that stupidity out of the loop by making things streamlined. But ultimately, as a student, if you are not inquisitive, if you do not have a question to ask, what will AI do? It's like a screwdriver on the table. So they said they call it the AI prompt. AI prompt needs prompting. And the prompting needs to come from you. And for that, you need to know what to prompt. That means you need to read, learn, understand, and ask. So the short answer is there's no shortcut. Even to use AI, you need to understand what to ask AI. See, one of the biggest advantage of AI is its ability to sieve through large quantum of data and try to extract the meaningful features. Let's say in our lab, we are collecting this for BHARAT study, collecting millions of data points per individual. Now, no human being can, remotely sit and go through that data. And we collect the data for thousands of people. It's like you're looking at a matrix of million by thousands. It's impossible. And then to understand the features of each of those markers and link it to some organ even more complex. That's where AI tools can be very useful. And yes, we are working with a lot of experts in AI. I'm not one, but there are colleagues in the team which are part of the AI industry, including some of the India's most foremost AI experts are there in our team. They are giving us support in terms of trying to make sense of this data. And I don't think there's any other way to do this. Computational power, which is at our disposal now, that we can understand a lot of data sets in a very short window. And that's where the power of AI would come in trying to understand health. Let's say tomorrow, I can, while you're walking on a road or you walk into a hospital, while you enter the hospital, there's scanners which built in the entrance, which scans all your features and gives me the readout. And while you walk, that a ping comes and alerts you, now you please go to this place for this kind of test. So by the time you reach to the clinician, you have a map of your vitals and your features and what's bothering you, what's not bothering you. This is only possible when their AI workflow can streamline the decision making process, which requires a lot of data to understand what decisions to take. And that's the stage we are in right.
Right. Professor, really, really appreciate you taking time and being part of the podcast. Will be great if you could leave us behind with your vision of the healthcare, what healthcare is going to look like in the next 10 years, and specifically the field of aging. I mean, what do you see in the next 10 years?
What I would like to see next early years is this is a narrative which is very frequently talked about. Current medicine is reactive. You get sick, you get cured. The next generation of medicine is proactive, preventative. What will be the future is actually something which is continuous monitoring. And before things even needs the fixing, we actually track to see how do you function. So medicine in next 10 years should be something which should get our hospitals empty. I would like to see our hospitals as a place where people only go when they really need health or actually sick care. People should not go to hospital for health care. Healthcare should become very local, very personal, where I can do monitoring at my own end by using a bunch of wearables. I can also go to primary healthcare place to get a whole bunch of simple tests to tell me which organ is at what state of health. That I do not need to visit a hospital till it's absolutely necessary. Right now, we go to hospital from a common cold to an absolutely required essential surgery. No, this is not a great thing for a country. Crowded hospitals are a crappy sign. You need to vacate those, empty those hospitals. The people who don't really need critical care actually can be managed at primary health care by simple intervention, simple remodeling their healthcare needs in a very local fashion. And that will do two things. It will actually make our hospitals more efficient. Second, it will also reduce the traffics on the road. You don't have to travel. And a lot of people actually traveling for healthcare need. We'll reduce that also. So I think that would be a big win for this country in next 10 years.
Professor, thank you so much for taking time and being part of the podcast. That was a profound note, hospitals empty. It's something which you don't think about, but what a world would that be, where you go only for sick care and with this possibly these convergence of tech stack which is coming in and also the Bharat study that you spoke about, maybe we'll have like digital twins or self which is measures every part of our body and maybe there are these AI doctors which diagnoses that and also treats you and cures you. So I hope that we actually get into that world and I really hope and I wish for a world where we are able to maybe find a way where we can make our aging population healthier. They don't have to fall, they don't have to maybe live a life of dignity, because it just yeah the last week, it was not just my mom, it was my in-laws who and there's so many others, that after a certain age you lose mobility, and I hope that we find these interventions and make a life a little bit better. So, wish you more power for your Bharat study. And to my listeners, if you like what you see and hear, then please press the subscribe button. Until next time, see you guys. Bye bye. Thank you. Thank you,
So
Professor.
before you close, can I say a few more words? Maybe you can fill in.
Yes,
You
please.
you touched upon a very nice point, and you talk about dignity. I would also say give them purpose. A retired person does not mean retired from life. Retired from an active working life. Give them purpose. I think we really need a big social experiment where the retired people needs to have a different purpose in life. Why not think about relocating retired people from urban cities to rural context in as school teachers, as advisors, where we see a big hole in our education system where we do not have good teachers. Think about giving these older people something which makes them retain their dignity and have a purpose. That will be a big win. And at the last, I would actually ask all the listeners to please do visit Longevity India website. This initiative cannot work without support of people. People in all form can support us in terms of becoming a volunteer for the study, giving us support in terms of acquiring new technologies, and giving us support by just spreading the word about this initiative because it's not for us. It's already late for people like me. It's for the generation, it's for the future. I think that's what we need to invest
Right, Professor. I will
in. Thank you.
definitely link the your website down, and I think that's such a profound note that you spoke about. Because what's happening is that at least the government, the people, what happens is that you end up working from your young age till the time you retire, and once you retire, I think everybody lets you go. It's like you are on your own. Children run away from you and you are on your own. So yes, that could be such a great world, if you can find a way to maybe give them purpose. So yeah, really appreciate it. Thank you, Professor.